am stuck in the traffic and have asked Ed to run the meeting for me while I am in traffic. So I apologize, but I'll try to get to the computer as soon as I can.
You got it covered, Kelly.
Thank you. You're so awesome, like usual.
Okay, let's see. I've got to start doing something here.
Just waiting on Candace.
Okay. There we go. Be ready for the pledge.
All right.
There it is.
Eva, have you heard if Candace will be joining us tonight?
We didn't hear anything from her, so I imagine she's probably just running a little bit late.
Well, she's got a couple of reasons to do that. So I'll take this opportunity to show grandbaby photographs.
Oh.
Just kidding. We'll give it another few minutes. Gordon, I think your place is one of the warmer groves in the valley, from what I see from your weather station.
You mean overnight?
Yes.
We let all the cold air slide down to you.
I
Yeah.
I know it. It's been pretty cold down here.
Have you
I
had
think
the
very-
wind machines?
We've run a few. It hasn't really been. The temperature has been dropping fast, but taking a long time to reach critical levels because of the humidity.
Yeah,
The rain really helped.
there's nothing like having soaking wet ground.
Candace is
Oh.
here.
We had a total of 435.
Wow.
It was
Wow.
good rain, best in
Nice.
years.
That's really good.
Okay, so Candace is here.
Mhm.
I think we're ready to go. So I will officially call the meeting to order at 5:01. And let's see, I've got a flag behind me. I'll just go ahead and lead the pledge. Please join me at the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, item 1B. Eva, can you do a director's roll call, please?
Yes. Director Kimball,
Here,
we know Chair Long's coming late. Vice Chair McFadden,
Here.
Director Minigan,
Here.
Director Pace,
Here.
Director Villaseñor.
Here.
Okay, we're good.
Okay, very good. Oops, hold on just a second. I just clicked the wrong button on my. Whoa, okay, sorry. Clicked a button, everybody disappeared. I thought I just signed off of the meeting. My moment passed. Okay, item 1C, are there any public comments? Lisa, are you going to be monitoring online?
Sure, I'd be happy to.
Thank you.
I'm not seeing any.
No raised hands. Okay, we'll move on to item 1D, approval of the agenda. I would entertain a motion to approve the agenda, or if anybody wants to pull anything, now's the time to say so.
move approval.
Okay, we have a motion. Is there a second?
I'll second.
All right, motion and a second. All in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
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 So, sorry,
Do we
Director
need-
McFadden, we need to do a roll call vote.
Oh, I always try to do it the fast way. Thank you very much.
I know, I apologize.
Give a roll call, please.
Yes, Director Kimball,
Aye.
um, Vice Chair McFadden,
Aye.
Director Minigan,
Aye.
Director Pace,
Aye.
Director Villaseñor.
Aye.
Perfect.
I'm sorry, it appears that Director Long is on the call.
Yes, I am. So yes, I agree too.
Oh, she's back. Okay, sorry.
Yep, yep, that's okay.
Chair Long?
Yes.
Okay, sorry about
Thanks,
that.
Scott. Keep us on point there, please. Okay, we'll move on. Move on to item 2A, Director's Update. Fillmore Pumpers.
Okay, the Fillmore Pumpers Board of Directors was dark in December. So there's nothing to report there. I do, however, have some good news. The letter that we wrote in support of the King and King Ranch Sweep Grant was very helpful. The grant was approved and awarded as requested. So thank you everyone for your help.
Good news.
It's fast.
And that's all I have.
Glenn, anything from Pyru?
Specifically from Pyru notes, kind of echoing what Gordon mentioned, I would add from Pyru and from me personally, the water company sale has been kicked down the road a little bit again, so I'm going to be with you for a few more months. It seemed that it was going to terminate in December, but it looks like it's still going to be into 2022. So I have not escaped the group yet. So.
Good news for us, Glenn. Thank you. Okay, Candace, Environmental Stakeholder Director Update.
I don't have an update besides that Friends of Santa Clara River has been having some field days out at Hedrick Ranch Nature Area in the Fillmore Hatchery, and that we submitted our full proposal for the Wildlife Conservation Board grant. And now we're waiting, they're busy doing review this December, so we'll learn early January whether or not that was successful. And I think the only other thing that I would like to add is that I believe the next round of Integrated Regional Water Management Program grants is open. There was an email from Lynn Rodriguez, and I suppose now is an opportunity to maybe start discussing some of the projects we've identified in our GSP and see whether or not those are fit for RWM. And if there's an opportunity to partner with other GSAs in the watershed for a more economy of scale with regards to any needs that are, or data gaps that are outstanding. And then for those of you that aren't aware, California Trout has done a petition to the Fish and Wildlife Commission to list southern steelhead as endangered at the state level, and that was just received yesterday, the evaluation by Department of Fish and Wildlife, and there's an opportunity to comment at the commission in February, on February 15th and 16th.
Okay, anything else, Candace?
Mm-mm.
All right, we'll move on to the City of Fillmore. Christina?
Okay, let's see, a few pertinent updates from City of Fillmore. Our municipal well number 8, which was taken offline back in February for emergency reasons, is officially back online. All repairs have been made, so that's excellent. We have had a great deal of events this past fall and into December that have been very successful. Our Parks and Rec department has been very active in their community outreach and bringing our community out to some good events and supporting local vendors. So I want to thank them for that, and we'll look forward to see what they have in the coming. Hold on one sec. And let's see, we just received some good news yesterday from Ventura County Transportation Commission that the railroad operator, Sierra Railroad, I believe their contract has been approved. That was as of maybe even earlier today. So it looks like we will have a train operator coming again through Fillmore and Santa Paula. And we'll be talking in January about our American Rescue Plan funds and using those. There's about $3 million in Fillmore and looking at broadband, looking at other infrastructure, perhaps some water and sewer infrastructure updates, as well as funds for the community to use. Hold on one sec. And I think that's about it. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Christina. Okay, from United Water. Oh,
Sorry, I
go ahead,
forgot.
Candace.
Friends of the Santa Clara River is entering into contract for round 3 of water talks. So that's going to be about training folks in disadvantaged communities on how to start to write grants around water needs and infrastructure needs. So that's moving forward through the County of Ventura's RWM program for the Santa Clara Watershed Committee. Now I'm done, sorry.
Okay. No worries, anytime. Okay, from United, one thing I wanted to mention to the group, especially to the pumpers, is that because of reporting differences in the water, or different water years between DWR and the way United usually reports water use, United is going to be starting a voluntary quarterly reporting system that will be rolled out here this coming year, I guess next month. But they'll be asking for a voluntary submission of water use on a quarterly basis so that we can more accurately report to DWR. So more will come out, but I just wanted to give the pumpers a heads up. Probably be a good thing we'll get more details from United, and that would be a good thing to bring to your membership and to your boards. Tony Emmert or Dan Detmer, is there anything else that needs to be added to that?
Vice Chair McFadden, this really stems from DWR's request to all of us, both United and GSAs, to start statewide reporting of all water use, both diversions and groundwater production on the water year. So October 1st to September 30th. I think we have some grace period, and we've had some communication with DWR in the past about doing some, I guess I would say, a smaller sample size, even if we miss some of them, and trying to get a handle on some actual data that we can do. One of the challenges that United has is it's written into United's statute that we collect information on the 6 month basis on the calendar year. So it's going to require a legislative change for United to do that a little bit differently, but there's nothing that says that we can't ask for voluntary information on a quarterly basis. And so that's what we're going to be doing. And we would be glad to make presentations to a pumpers meeting to talk about the reasoning for that, if you would like. We can also send out something with billing notices. So we'll probably be, we will be sending something out for the pumping that ends at the end of this month. So that usually goes out, notices go out late December, and we would like that information to be collected at the end of the month, beginning of January, and then turned in February. So Dan, do you have anything you want to add to that?
I would just add that, yes, we're intending to include a brief paragraph in the billing statement at the end of this production period that says we're going to be requesting meter reads at the end of March, the 1st of April for the water year cycle, and we'll be sending out a reminder in mid or late March with more details and website links and such. So we want this to be well explained and well supported by our information, and we're hoping for good cooperation with this. It'll really be helpful for our DWR reporting, and it'll keep us in sync with Fox Canyon GMA now who has converted to that water reporting. So yeah, as Tony represented, more to come, but what's coming out with our new mailing is just an early heads up that start thinking about this. We're going to ask you to read your meter 4 times a year instead of twice.
I'll also mention that there was strong feeling from parts of the United Board that it was very important this be explained, that pumpers understood the reasoning behind it, and that people weren't blindsided by a sudden and confusing change in the reporting as requested by United. So it's I'll say it's not of United's doing, but I think it's something that shouldn't be too hard for most pumpers to do. I know I won't have a problem with it. Okay, let's see. Kelly's there. Kelly, do you want to do an update now, or when you get to solid ground?
I can do an update. I'll just unmute. So the update is that for the County of Ventura, every 10 years we do a redistricting for the maps and whose area is in whose supervisor's district. And I am proud to state that the Fillmore and Piru Basin, I will continue to serve. And so that's really happy about that. And also that the County of Ventura the board has elected those representatives for each of the basins. And I will continue to serve as the supervisor for this Fillmore and Piru Basin. So that's excited to hear that. Thank you, Candace, in talking about the water grants. Appreciate that. And also for the VCTC, yes, today we announced that Sierra Northern is the railroad that will, this service that will be using the railroad, so that will be good as well. And then also the Department of Water had sent out information about looking at conservation of water for next year due to our situation of drought. It's hard for me to say that will continue since I'm driving in the rain, but hopefully we will get enough water to not be in a drought anymore. So I'm crossing my fingers on that. With that, that's the rest of my update for right now. Thank you.
Thanks, Chair Long. Okay, anything additional that any director wants to add? All right, then let's move on to item 2B, Executive Director Update. Mr. Emery.
Good evening, board. I have a few items, so I'll move to those quickly. Regarding our groundwater sustainability grant, we are rapidly moving through the main portion of this. However, we still have a grant amendment that's needed, and I'll run through the 3 items. We've been running in place a little bit, hoping that we could finish our property access documents for the monitoring wells that you approved in the summertime. That has been going slowly. 3 of the wells are on state-owned property, and that's just a pretty slow process. So at this point, we have let our grant manager know that it's unlikely that we're going to be able to get those easement documents in place and these wells constructed near the riverbed in vicinity to Leaks Bells Vireo and other bird nesting potential areas. So we would have to have that construction done by February 15th, and I think that's highly unlikely at this point. So the next opportunity we will have is after September 15th, when the bird nesting season is done. So we were trying as hard as we could to get all that lined out, but it's just not going to happen. So we're asking for an extension of the grant that would allow us the time to do that component and get back in right after bird nesting season in September. We could finish our, I believe the shallow wells are 1 to 2 days per site. There'll probably be 2 different kinds of rigs, and then the one deeper well out on the south side at the Fillmore, Santa Paula Basin boundary area. That's planned for 600 feet. And so that's going to be a different kind of a rig, and will take maybe a couple weeks to complete that, and then some time after to do the well completion reports. So that is our proposed schedule to our grant manager, and he has responded that that's pushing it a little bit with this grant, but he's going to run that up the chain. And as I've heard, there are others in our region that are also having trouble getting access agreements for monitoring wells. That's just something that's slow. Well drillers are busier than they were a year ago. And then the other line items that we've already have tentative approval for, not official, is rearrangement of funding between budget line items. And then I believe I mentioned before, one of our deliverables is an inter-basin agreement with the Santa Clarita Valley Basin GSA. And they're not interested in an agreement at this point. They are interested in an agreement in the future. When we talk about how we might operate these inline basins conjunctively, we did extensive coordination with them. And so we're proposing substituting the planning documents and the coordination for that agreement. And that seems to be acceptable to our grant manager. But so those will be the three things we're asking for. And the one, we promised we would do our best to try to get these wells constructed as soon as we could. And we just haven't been able to get that done. So that's the request that's going in. And then as December wraps up, we'll be preparing our 11th progress report and invoice. So we're making good progress. We have some things to invoice. And so that's the grant report. Kind of switching to outstanding receivables. I want to keep the board updated on that. So our current outstanding receivables as of yesterday is a hair under 200,000. However, 162,000 of that is either invoices that DWR is processing. I believe the last two invoices are in the queue, and then of course they retain 10% of those. So that's current invoices plus retention that adds up to the 162,000. And so of course they'll keep the retention until the grant is completely over. We have 37,600 approximately outstanding from delinquent groundwater payments. Most of the payments have been received for pumping that took place up to the end of June. And so the ones that are delinquent at this point, when the report's been run, are likely ones that are way late. Out of that 37,600, 22,300 is from one well. It's the pumper that we talked about before. Our legal counsel has been looking into whether and that pumper has declared bankruptcy, does own a property as we discussed. So we're looking to see if we can basically join that bankruptcy so that court knows that there's money that's owed to this agency. I believe that in the bankruptcy, they did not declare that they owed money to either this agency or United. That pumper is a couple $100,000 behind with United over a 5-year period. So they've been making partial payments. So, and I think I had said before that United had taken legal action about 2 years ago, and it got held up in court. So with respect to most of the rest of them, we're doing pretty well, but we do have that one pumper that's a problem, and we'll keep you updated on some of that. And we may want to have a closed session at some point if you would like us to talk a little bit more about the details about our options. I do want to say, I don't remember if I said last month, I may have mentioned that DWR is planning on releasing the Sustainable Groundwater Management Grant Program, SGM grants, round 2. The proposal solicitation package is expected out in October of 2022. That may slip. They're working really hard on round 1, which is, I believe there are 21 critical basins that are the only ones that are eligible for that. And they're attempting to get all of that together by the end of January. So all the rest of us are eligible for round 2, and that could be as early as October. So, you know, as this agency thinks about its projects and programs in the first half of 2022, that will be a good opportunity to flesh out any kind of projects or programs and perhaps apply for grants under that SGM program. We just mentioned the quarterly pumping data request. I do want to note that we will need to have a special meeting in January 2022 because of the AB 361's requirements of 30 days. So, so we will be working with Chair Long to probably call a special meeting within 30 days. And I had a date on the calendar, but it will probably have to be maybe the Thursday before. We're the 3rd Thursday, and perhaps we could have a brief meeting. And we don't really even have to have the whole board. If the whole board can't make it, we just have to have a quorum of the board to adopt the resolution that would continue our remote meeting standing. I do want to remind everybody that we all have to, or board members and some of us staff have to complete our California Fair Political Practices Form 700s sometime soon. So get your records together, and Eva will be pestering all of us and making sure that we get those turned in to the clerk with the County of Ventura. And Chair Long had asked us to think about a celebration of GSP submittal. So I think I'm on board with that. I would suggest that we do that in January if we can, after we successfully upload all of those documents and people have less going on. And we've been thinking about places that we might be able to meet in the Fillmore and Piru area. One of the ideas we had is the El Pescador restaurant that might have a side room that we could set aside for something other than getting work done, and have a little visit and celebration of the accomplishment. I don't know how the Gissinger Winery works next to the City Hall, but anyway, think about where we might get together for a brief celebration of 3.5 years worth of work and getting this work product submitted. And that's all I have for tonight.
Thanks, Tony. I think whoever chairs the special meeting in January will set the record for fastest meeting.
Yes.
Okay, that's all for 2B. Let's move on to item 2C. Scott, do you have any updates for us?
Just 2 items. As Tony mentioned, he had sent me information on the particular pumper's bankruptcy case. I have emailed the pumper's attorney in that case so that we can be added to the proof of service, start receiving notices in the case, and submit a claim in the case. I have not heard back from the attorney, which isn't necessarily surprising because I got the information Tuesday, but I will follow up, keep following up to make sure that we get included in the case and get our claim filed. And then I've been speaking with Phoebe Chu from Ventura County Council's office, and she has been helping me with the delinquent fee issue. She has been great to work with. She has sent me a number of documents that we need to complete in order to process this action with the county. And she sent a template for a resolution for this board to adopt to move forward. I intend to have that for the board at the regular January board meeting, not the 2-minute special meeting, but the regular board meeting. And that's all that I have for this evening. And a happy rainy Thursday to all of you.
Very good. Thank you, Scott. Appreciate it. Okay, item 2D, GSP consultant update. Mr. Morgan.
Evening, everybody. You'll be disappointed. I don't have a PowerPoint for you tonight at all. So a couple quick things. The activity that we've been working on since the last board meeting is all focused on prepping the draft final GSPs and the appendices. That's where we've been spending our time. A couple of appointments, or excuse me, appoints that coming up soon. Reminder that the final GSPs need to be into DWR by the end of January, and that annual reports have to be into DWR by the 1st of April. So there's a couple of deadlines that are looming there in the not too distant future. Also, the board should not forget that we had in the GSPs commented that we would have continued negotiations with CDFW regarding the mitigated groundwater supplying to the Cienega Restoration Project area. And so I didn't want that to fall off of the radar of the board. That's something that I would suggest you consider picking up after the first of the year sometime. So that's it for me. Thank you.
Thanks, Tony. Okay, we'll move on to the consent calendar. As usual, we can either approve it all together, or if board members want to pull one of the items for further discussion, we can separate that. What's the pleasure of the board? Sounds like we can consider a motion to accept the consent calendar as presented.
I'll make that motion. Oh,
Oh, let's see. I think I saw Christina followed by Glenn.
so yeah, I'll second that.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Eva, can we have a roll call, please? Uh-oh. Eva, you're doing my mute trick.
Oh, here we go.
There we go.
Sorry about that. Okay, Director Kimball,
Aye.
Chair Long. Is she with us?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Vice Chair McFadden,
Aye.
Director Minigan,
Aye.
Director Pace,
Aye.
and Director Villaseñor.
Aye.
Perfect. Okay.
Okay, the motion passes unanimously. Okay, let's move on to motion items. Now, number 4A. Who's going to take the lead on that?
I'll start off. Congratulations, board. We've reached the point at which we have a product that we can vote on. We have, as Tony Morgan said, the DBSNA team has worked extremely hard to proof all of these documents, and they have been posted on the agency's website. We have a few requirements that are that we have met as described in the agenda staff report. We were required to provide 90 days notice to the counties and cities involved in this in these GSPs. So we have done that more than 90 days in advance. We are required to have a public hearing, and we chose for it to be cleaner that we would have a separate action for each of the basins. And I think that the way we're going to have to do this, or we want to do this on a vote afterwards, after we hold the public hearing, is that for the Fillmore Basin, the Piru Basin stakeholder pumper director would not be voting on that one. And so we would have all the other directors, so the 3 member directors, the environmental stakeholder director, and the Fillmore pumper director would be voting on Fillmore, and Director Pace would not be. And then when we move to vote on the Piru Basin plan, then it would be the opposite. We are required to open and to hold a public hearing, receive any last comments, have any board close the public hearing, any board deliberations or discussion, and then you have the opportunity to take a vote. You also have the opportunity to direct us to go back and fix something that you don't like. We probably won't like that too much, but because we're running out of time and we don't particularly want to come back. But if you or the public see anything that that needs to be changed, we will gladly do that, and we will have to likely schedule a special meeting to circle back to these. And it does present us a little bit of challenge with public noticing. We'll have to get that published again. So we would prefer and recommend that if there are any last minute changes that you see, that we can include those in the motion and direct us to make those changes. We hope that we don't have substantive changes. I think this board and the stakeholders have made, as well as our consultant team, have made an exemplary effort at trying to capture all of these complicated things. And we really appreciate the board looking at this in detail, but I think we're here to where we have something that we can be proud of and we can adopt. And I'd like to turn it over to Tony Morgan to talk a little bit about if he has any items that he'd like to follow up on before we take the next step.
Thanks, Tony. Just briefly to alert the board to the general process in creating the draft final documents. So we went through and accepted those red line documents that were in your board packet for the November meeting that you had opportunity to look at and were the focus of the discussions that happened at the November board meeting. We then went through those comments again and cross-checked to see if there were any changes that we made in section A that we need to also make in section B and that kind of thing. So it was a great deal of that kind of effort. There was some minor and limited new text to some of the sections, and those are recorded in the response to comments tables, that if you wish to go there and go back to the original document then, or the draft final document, and see what those changes are, those are there. So I think that's about it for an introductory of what the process was like for creating these draft final. There was lots of consideration given to the discussion that happened at the November meeting. So I'll turn it back to you guys.
Okay, well, I'll just say that we've been at this for what, more than 3.5 years. We've had great discussion, great input from all stakeholders. Voluminous are a very, I don't know how to describe it, but it's hard to imagine having more outreach than what we've done with the limitations of COVID, unfortunately. But I think we still do a good job. So I guess the next step is to, and Tony and Scott, correct me if I'm wrong, but I'll go ahead and officially open the public hearing for receiving stakeholder comments on the final draft of the Fillmore Basin Groundwater Sustainability Plan and technical appendices. So are there any comments, input from board members or anyone else? Lisa, if you could keep track of things, let us know if something pops up, please.
Director McFadden, I think that at this point we'll just take public comment.
Okay.
And then we'll have a motion second and a vote to close the public hearing, and then we can take director comment after that.
Okay, thank you very much for the clarification.
Sure.
If
Right.
anybody from the public has a comment, feel free to raise your virtual hand. And if you're more comfortable, we have a few people here, so we can just unmute yourself, and we should be able to take you that way as well. I'm not seeing any raised hands or anything in the chat is another option. And if nobody's unmuting and speaking, then it seems like we have no public comment.
Okay, if there's no further public comment, then I would entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved.
Director Avila Sonora has made the motion. Is there a second?
No, sorry. No, let Kelly do it.
I haven't seen you guys shy in 4 years. What's going on?
I think that I heard a second from Director Long, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes, he did.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Eva, can you give us a roll call vote, please?
Okay, I'm just not going to mention Kimball on this one. Is that correct? Okay. Okay, Chair Long,
Yes.
Vice Chair McFadden,
Aye.
Director Minigan,
No,
Director Pace.
Wait, excuse me, Eva. I think we're working on, let's see, so Gordon has to step out for this, or is it Glenn?
I thought it was Glenn, Mr. Gordon, excuse me.
This is the Fillmore Basin,
No.
so it will be Director Pace that's not voting on this.
Oh, okay, I got it reversed. Sorry about that. Okay, it's Director Kimball.
Aye.
Okay. Okay, so Director Villaseñor. Because everybody else already said it, correct? Or she's muted.
Director Villaseñor voted yes. Everyone voted yes, I believe.
Yes.
no,
Okay.
I voted no.
Oh, sorry, Director Minigan.
Yeah, we didn't have a discussion. I was going to say that I know there's been a lot of hard work and that there has been input, and I just feel that the lack of sustainable management criteria for certain public trust resources is a very big oversight, and that's the reason for my voting no at this juncture. I don't want it to be, I don't want to take away from the good in the plan, but as the environmental stakeholder, that is big oversight in my opinion, and that's why I'm voting no.
So we're voting on whether or not to close the public hearing so that the board can then discuss the plan.
Oh, I thought we're not discuss. Oh, okay. Well, I'm voting yes.
Okay.
We're all confused.
I was surprised we hadn't done discussion, which was why I wanted to give a reason.
I understand. Yep.
Thank you for that clarification, Scott. Yeah, it's just we're opening and closing, or closing the public hearing now, and then we'll go to board discussion before vote on acceptance. So we have the votes that we need, I believe, to close the public hearing. All right,
Yes,
the public hearing is closed, and we'll open it up to board discussion. And I see Chair Long is back.
Yes, you're doing a great job. I'm going to let you continue. Thank you.
I tried. Okay, onward to board discussion, please. Candace, did you want to?
Yes. Okay, so now it's my opportunity to explain. I feel as though we got quite considerable input from National Marine Fisheries Service and Caltrout and the Nature Conservancy and, you know, a host of stakeholders. And we ran through the response to comments, and the GDE Tech memo has been updated, and a lot of the considerations were given consideration, but I think the overall litigation risk with regards to Endangered Species Act and public trust resources, the fact that we don't have sustainable management criteria and measurable objectives for some listed species is a very big gap. And at the very least, we should be identifying a limiting factors analysis for southern steelhead to meet that gap. I've heard Tony Emmert's comments about the monitoring wells and those data gaps, and how that can be addressed in a 5-year update. But there were comments from both Friends of Santa Clara River and the Department of Fish and Wildlife around the need for temperature analysis, and that's really just not being captured. And I see it as a big oversight, which introduces a risk of litigation against us as a GSA.
Okay, thank you for your comments, Candace. Any other discussion or comments from other board members?
Yes, I just wanted to say thank you to, we have a wide pendulum. We have pumpers, we have environmentalists, we have our municipality, we have a lot of feedback that we have done for the last 3.5 years in regards to stakeholder engagement and to get our sustainable management criteria. And I want to remind everyone that it is a living document and that it will be continuing to be updated in programs, and as grants come through, we'll be working with that and the other organizations with their efforts and goals. So I appreciate that the state has put this plan in place. We didn't just come up with it, we were mandated to do it and to work to sustain our area. It's a beautiful location. I think we've done a good job in our representation, and know that we are always there for feedback. We may agree as to what level we do things at, but I think a common ground is to make sure that it is, the water is there and is sustainable for all uses. And so I just want to appreciate the time and effort for everybody on this. So I know that things will keep on moving, and this is just a moment in time, but there's a lot of effort and stakeholder engagement that went into this, and I want to acknowledge that. So thank you, Tony, Lisa, Tony, just everyone for doing this with us. Chris, I don't see where still water is, but there's a lot of work here, so thank you.
Thank you, Chair Long. Okay, other board members, any comments before we call a vote here?
I'd like to, Chair McFadden, or temporary Chair McFadden.
Acting.
Acting. I'd like to follow up on what Kelly said, in that this document is different than most documents that people are familiar with, public documents in terms of EIRs or development agreements or the things that happen. This is a living document that by legislation has to be revised every 5 years. And that makes it different, and I hope it makes a different approach. We've done the heavy lifting, and I foresee that the coming years are going to be more about working together. And I sincerely hope that we can do this in a consulting or a consultation or working together, and we don't have to do it in the courts, because if we do, the money that we've spent so far will be peanuts compared to what we end up spending with lawyers. I hope we can work together as we work on the things that we talked about doing over the next 5 years and doing more listening and consulting rather than consulting with lawyers. So I want to thank everybody for all their efforts and all the time that's been spent. It's not perfect, and it really never will be, but it's a good start. Thank you.
I think I have to say this board has demonstrated willingness to listen, collaborate, and work together to solve problems. And I think it will continue to do so. So let's continue to talk and solve our problems together. Okay, any other comments?
Would the board be willing to entertain a motion to adopt the resolution for the formal basin GSP, including a steelhead limiting factors analysis within a 2-year time frame? Like I said, I think that is big oversight, which is why I'm reluctant to vote yes on adopting the plan in its current state. And I think that could address some very important data gaps to help develop sustainable management criteria. It's just that is not currently identified. A pathway to getting to a sustainable management criteria and a measurable objective for southern steelhead is just lacking. And I think if there is a commitment to getting something like that within a 2 to 5 year time frame in the plan, I'd feel more comfortable.
Any comments from other board members?
I always have something. I definitely respect Candace's point of view on this, but am reluctant to add on to what we currently have. I think that we need to reevaluate it as we move forward. But I believe currently what we have right now is what we should move forward with. Based on stakeholder engagement and everything that we have heard and worked on. I have concerns in adding something in this late in the game without proper stakeholder engagement and so forth.
Well, I don't, Chair Long, the thing is, this has been brought to the board. It has been in comment letters when there were GDA tech memos in draft form. There, these concerns from Department of Fish and Wildlife and National Marine Fisheries and Friends of the Santa Clara River, these have been brought. They're just not being adequately considered and incorporated into the plan. It's not that we have engaged and we have received feedback. It's not being incorporated into the plan, and that's why it is right now lacking.
Comment I would make is I personally think we've got a pretty good package to vote on now. We've had stakeholder input from all sides. As Gordon said, it's not perfect, but I do feel like we need to, I'm concerned about adding something on to what was prepared for the agenda tonight, and certainly wouldn't be opposed to further discussion once we have it past DWR as part of the ongoing living document nature of the process. But I hope we can vote on what we have now tonight. Okay, I guess if there's no further discussion, then I would entertain a motion to adopt resolution 2021-09 for the Fillmore Basin Groundwater Sustainability Plan.
I'll make that motion.
Okay, we have a motion from Chair Long. Is there a second?
I'll second.
second from Director Kimball. Eva, may we have a roll call vote, please?
Sure.
And excuse me, now this would be the modified roll call vote as we discussed before. Is that correct, Scott? Okay,
Yes.
so excluding Director Pace for this particular vote, but
That's
everybody else
correct.
included.
Okay. Director Kimball.
Aye.
Okay. Chair Long,
Aye.
Director Minigan,
No,
Director Villasenor.
You're muted.
She's muted. I think she said aye. No, she didn't.
Aye.
Okay. Okay.
I think you
And
need
Ed?
to ask. Aye.
Okay.
Eva, can you announce the results of the vote, please?
Okay. So there's 1 no and 5 approved.
Okay, the motion
It's
passes.
gonna be 4.
One.
Or, yeah,
No, 4, excuse
in
me,
favor,
4 1,
No.
4-1-1.
4 1 1.
Very good. Thank you, Eva. Candace, did you raise your hand to correct the count, or did you have another comment? Okay, thank you very much. All right, item 4A is completed. Move on to item 4B. You want to give the lead to that again, Tony?
I don't know if there's, I won't repeat, but again, I feel that you have a complete product before you. The documents have been available. The public hearing was advertised. As was stated, this is a living document and we can consider new things at any time. We don't have to wait for 5 years. The Fox Canyon GMA is actually adding projects with their annual report that they're doing early in January. So, but aside from that, we have a set of documents before us. We do need to open a public hearing, receive public comments, and then we would close the hearing. And again, this will be Director Kimball abstaining from this discussion and vote.
Okay, then with that, I will open the public hearing to receive stakeholder comments on the final draft of the Piru Basin Groundwater Sustainability Plan and technical appendices. So Lisa, do you want to kind of keep track of that for us?
Sure. If anybody from the public would like to make a comment, again, please feel free to raise your virtual hand, put something in the chat box, or I invite you just to unmute and start speaking if you would like. I'm not seeing any comments in the chat box. I'm not seeing any raised hands. If we want to give it another few seconds, perhaps, but other than that, it seems as if we don't have any public comments.
Okay, we'll give it just a couple of seconds just to make absolutely sure. Anything else? Anything popping up, Lisa?
Nothing is popping up that I can see.
And I would motion to close the public hearing.
Okay, we have a motion. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second from Director Minigan. Eva, roll call, please.
Okay. Chair Long,
Yes.
Vice Chair McFadden,
Aye.
Director Minigan,
Aye.
Director Pace,
Aye.
Director Villasenor. I think she said aye.
Aye.
Okay, perfect. Okay. 411. I mean, excuse me, 501.
Okay, very good. Public hearing is closed. Time to open to for director's comments.
I would make the same comments in regard to the Piru Basin. I know we have to submit to, but these basins work together and are extremely important for all of Ventura County as well. And appreciate working with all of the entities, and that this report is just a moment in time, and we will continue working on this basin as well.
Okay, and I would like to make a comment I didn't make in the previous plan, and that's again from a municipal perspective and as a member of this board just for the last year while you were in the thick of it. And I've really appreciated the process and all the work and all the really thoughtful, critical thinking issues that have been brought to everyone's attention, and the work of this board along with all the consultants to address them, you know, and including the environmental stakeholders. And I just have to reiterate what Director Long said, is that I'm really pleased that it is a working document, and that there is lots of room to make improvements of it. And you know, again, I don't speak so much in technical terms, but being just, you know, a resident of this valley and part of the city of Fillmore, and taking a bird's eye view of, you know, this is sustainability for the basin and includes the GDEs. And I'm looking forward to future discussions that we're going to have about how we can ensure that along with the pumpers being able to continue their livelihood, that we look at what we can do as a whole group, including the pumpers, including the residents of Fillmore, Piru, and everyone come together to help preserve the GDEs. So just want to make that comment. Thank you.
Appreciate the comment, Director Villaseñor. Any other comments?
I would just echo my comments from the previous resolution. I'm not discounting the hard work that we've all put in. We've all been at this table, and we've had other board members at this table along this journey of almost 4 years. And as an environmental stakeholder, having reviewed the comment letters received by the stakeholders that I represent, I just do not feel comfortable that we are adequately addressing the concerns. I don't want that to discredit the hard work that has been included in the GSP, but as the environmental stakeholder, I would not be taking my stakeholders' considerations into account if I were to adopt the GSP without sustainable management criteria and minimum thresholds and measurable objectives for federally endangered species and state endangered species that haven't been adequately captured in the GSP. That said, you know, I am still participating in this process. I would like to still entertain a motion that we include a limiting factors analysis and have a commitment on a 2 to 5 year timeframe to include what I feel is missing. And if that isn't seconded, I sincerely hope that we can work on that within the next 5 years to be included in the update. I'm just going to stress again, Southern steelhead can be extinct within my lifetime, and every delay in getting those minimum thresholds and those measurable objectives puts them at jeopardy, and they are a public trust resource that we need to protect for the greater public and the greater good. And that's not to say I'm not committed to supporting livelihoods and our farming community and our municipalities and our cities. And the people that live in this valley, but I do take the consideration of all stakeholders very, I take it seriously, but as an environmental rep, I can't accept the plan in its current iteration.
Thank you for your comments, Candace.
Yeah, so just a couple of things come to mind for me. I would prefer to be at this stage tonight with a unanimous vote, which has been the majority, I would say, of our votes up to this point have been that way, but not all of them. It would have been nice to be there, but I can also, I think, empathize with Candace and her situation and taking her responsibility as the environmental constituent and representative here, and that, so I can appreciate that as well. I will say at this point, I don't know if it's through exhaustion or what, I feel unprepared to make any adjustments or support any adjustments to the plan where we're at the 11th hour. I'm not saying that we haven't talked about these things, but I'm just saying where we're at right now, I feel like between a rock and a hard place. So I feel and I'm hopeful based on the living document comments that getting what we need to now gets us to this milestone, this deadline. And that we would be able to continue making, having these discussions and doing things. But at this point, I don't feel like I could support making any significant adjustments or anything to the document. But I also do believe that we have, based on the document we have right now, the basin moving forward has a better chance and will likely to continue to be a basin that's sustainable. And so I think we've made a lot of progress. We're going in the right direction, and has been mentioned by others. It's not a perfect document. I would support also that whether, maybe it's not at this point, adding to future discussion items, bringing those discussions up and continuing that for our next meeting and putting that as a priority, that I could support, but I just, at this point, don't feel like I would be ready to add or subtract from this document where we're at. That's all.
Good comments, Glenn. Thank you. Okay, anything else? Anyone else? All right, then I would entertain a motion for the adoption of resolution 2021-10, adopting the Piru Basin Groundwater Sustainability Plan.
I'll motion to approve.
Okay, we have the motion by Chair Long. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Second by Director Pace. Okay, Eva, can we have another modified roll call vote, please?
Sure. Chair Long,
Yes.
Vice Chair McFadden,
Aye.
Director Minigan,
No.
Director Pace,
Aye.
Director Villaseñor.
Aye.
Okay. Okay.
Okay, Eva, can you tabulate and announce the results of the vote, please?
Sure. 411.
Okay, the motion passes. Okay, well, 3.5 years of work came to this. It's not the end, it's the beginning. It's the beginning of the process with a lot more work to do. Now we've got to see what the DWR says too, and that will certainly influence how we go forward.
Yes, and Ed or if Tony and Tony could just reiterate for our stakeholders in public, what is the time frame for accepting a plan once it's submitted?
Tony Morgan, you want to take that?
Yeah,
I guess
sure.
maybe I'll start in that there are going to be hundreds of high and medium priority basin GSPs submitted by the end of January. And so if it doesn't crash DWR's server, assuming they all get uploaded, it's going to be a heavy lift for DWR to review these. And I don't know, Tony, if you have any recent discussions with DWR on what their thinking is and what their staff resources are.
Well, like most state agencies, they'll say they don't have enough staff to do what's being tasked of them to do, but they've got 2 years to review these documents. So it's not like it has to be turned around in 6 months. They do have 2 years. And the good news is they've sort of cut their teeth on the critically overdrafted basins. So hopefully that's got a little bit of the workflow figured out and that kind of thing. And they got the kinks out of the system a little ways that way. So they do have a lot of it's a big hill in front of them. And I don't wish that on anybody. That's a formidable task to get through all of these documents. So they've got 2 years though. So upon adoption, we go ahead and progress as if DWR has approved the plans, and we wait for their comments.
Acting Chair McFadden, if I can ask a follow-up question. I think I appreciate the discussion that the board has had. And as Tony Morgan mentioned earlier, we are already committed to resuming work with California Department of Fish and Wildlife on developing the Cienega project. So the last several weeks, we have not made much progress with that because we've had our hands full with the current task. But we will pivot back to that, as well as working on the annual report. But as Director Menigan asked, would you like staff and team to and this could be discussed in the future agenda items at the end, but if you would like, we can start crafting a scope and talking about price and schedule for doing some of these surveys? Or would you rather have that be a discussion item at the January meeting and we can chew on it a little bit more with the group at that point?
I think that would be appropriate for a future meeting. And,
okay.
And again, I'd sure like to see what DWR has to say about this after Tony Morgan and his team push the send button many times.
Yes.
That's going to be the next critical factor, and that may guide a lot of what we do. So I don't want to overstep ourselves too much.
Okay, thank you.
Chair Long, any?
No, that's appropriate. And just for the community to know that we will be continuing to work with the Fillmore-Piru groundwater basin. We're going to be talking about our budget next. And so I thought that was a good teeing up of making sure they know the expectations. Thank you.
Okay, then. Chair Long, if you would like me to continue, I'll move forward with item 4C. Tony Emmert, are you going to be handling that?
Yes, I will. Acting Chair McFadden, what we have before you is a line item amendment proposal within the existing 21-22 budget. Item 4D is a proposed amendment to the agreement with Daniel B. Stevens and Associates for assistance in preparing the annual report, which, as was mentioned earlier, is due April 1st. So there's no rest for the weary at this point, and work needs to start on that update. Our proposal is to, as I mentioned earlier, our monitoring wells project is not moving as quickly as we had hoped. And so there is budget to spare in that line item. So our proposal is to move $100,000 from the monitoring wells capital project line item to the professional services GSP consultant line item, which will allow us to have adequate funds to consider the item 4C or 4D, which would be the additional scope of work and fee for Daniel B. Stevens. So the motion, this is not going to add to pump charges. It's not digging into reserve. It's just a request to move $100,000 from one line item to the other.
Okay, any questions or comments from the board?
I have a question. So when we need the 100,000 at a later date, that's going to come from regular rates that are incoming later. We're not going to have to go out for further grant.
Director Menigan, that's a good question. And this is assuming we get approval from our grant administrator and his superiors at DWR, we should still have sufficient budget to complete this. So essentially, within the balance of this fiscal year, we have to get the annual report done, and we did not budget for that in this fiscal year. It is included in our cash flow projection. And we do not expect to need the money or need all of the money that's in the current line item for this fiscal year. We do expect to need it in the next fiscal year, in the first half of the next fiscal year. And so this money isn't going anywhere. Any money that's unspent will roll over as fund balance to the next fiscal year. And our cash flow projection shows that unless DWR rejects our grant, rejects that portion of the grant work. So assuming that DWR approves it, we should have cash to cover all of the scope of work that we have before us in the grant project, including the monitoring wells, without having to raise the pump charges. So we're assuming that the pump charges stay at $12 an acre foot, and we're assuming that we're able to collect most of it. And so this should not present us a problem.
Okay, any other further questions? Comment? No, go ahead, Kendra.
Indication from DWR that there would be an issue? I mean, we've been working on this grant amendment for a while. Is it just the wheels of the bus, government turn really slowly? Or have we gotten any feedback that might have us wonder?
Director Manigan, we have. This grant, like many others, is caught in the pressure from the legislature and the administration to get the money spent ASAP. Mm-hmm. And our original timeline for getting the money spent was springtime 2022, with the goal of getting all the invoices in before mid-calendar year, and then the grant would wrap up. So that was the original schedule. The grant administrator has a very limited, or our grant manager, Eduardo Pech, has a very limited personal authority to do things like line item changes, and he has agreed to those. And he did have the authority to allow us to construct these wells a little bit later, so into the springtime. But the challenge that we have is we want data from an area that's shallow groundwater close to these GDE areas. And so we have, of course, the very practical problem that we just can't ensure that we're not going to disturb nesting leaf-spells vireo or other southwest willow flycatcher, or maybe yellow-billed cuckoo. And so we just run into a problem between doing responsible work and the grant timeline. So Eddie has told us that they have pressure to try to get this money out, and I have been keeping him updated. And we promised him that we would do everything we can to try to get this done within his signature authority, so to try to complete this before the bird nesting season. And if I would have had easement documents signed in hand to bring you tonight, I think we could have tried to get this done, because this isn't very much construction, but we don't. And I think the wells that are around the Cienega area are probably our most critical data that we need to get, and that's the one that's just taking us longer to get. And in fact, we're maybe I'm providing a little bit too much detail, but I am finding that getting a permanent easement document from a state agency is extremely difficult. And so what I've proposed to the folks that are working on this is to fall back to a license agreement that requires less signatures. And I don't see that there's the risk with a license agreement that there is with a private property owner. So for example, if we do a license agreement with an agricultural property owner, and next year the property owner decides to sell, that license agreement expires and we have to start all over. So I have to be able to promise DWR at a very minimum to give them the data 3 years past the close of the grant period. So at the earliest, that would be mid 2022, and then 3 years past that. I could not promise that with a private property owner because people can sell at any time.
Yeah.
And with a state agency, I think that is working on a restoration project that would benefit from this data. The restoration staff is doing this. They want this data as well as do we. And so I think it's highly unlikely that the state, if we can get a license agreement, it's very highly unlikely that the state would tell us that, the license agreement's canceled because they need the data too. So the very people that they have hired to do some of this work, really want this data for their work. So I think I can, with a straight face, talk to the grant manager and tell them, a license agreement will suffice. We can meet the minimum requirements and likely much, much longer. I want to have a monitoring well that we're going to get 20, 30, 40, 50 years out of, because the trend is the most important thing.
Yeah.
So,
I think my biggest concern is that we aren't going to get stuck with having to increase rates for pumpers. And then secondly, I don't want to not construct these wells to address the data gap. So I don't want any of those scenarios. And I'm just trying to ascertain that we aren't going to have any cash flow issues.
a few months ago, Director Menigan, I was feeling nervous about these. But I am feeling much, much better with the 3 wells at the Cienega area. The manager of the restoration project, I think, was he's spread really thin and not on that site very often. And I believe that he's completely on board. We have the exact locations, the path of travel to get to and from the monitoring wells, and all the details worked out. Now it's just going to be getting the signatures that we need. So I feel confident that we can get a license agreement for these locations now on the state properties. And the one over by the East Grove area, that one has not been a problem. We have a very willing landowner there.
Right.
That one will have the same construction problems. And as this board knows, we have several other locations that we're working on to try to get data from. They just don't require construction. So there's a well that Matt Freeman, who often participates in this GSA that represents the Camulos property, has agreed to access to a well that he's no longer using. So that would be converted into a permanent monitoring well. That's a great location. We're working with the 5 Point folks and Santa Clarita Valley Water GSA on a monitoring well up by the Del Valle GDE. And I believe I shared in the past, there's one that we had worked on for several months that's on the north side of the Santa Clara River, just west of the Sespe confluence. And we have lost that one with that property owner. That was the former Valley Crest, and the Valley Crest sold to a Northern California nursery group, and they were unwilling to enter into an easement agreement. So we're going to step back from that and look at some adjacent properties and start working with them. So we are making progress on this. Unfortunately, it was only about a year ago that we had our data gaps analysis come out and our discussions of what data we wanted around these GDEs. And so that has turned out to be insufficient time to negotiate these. I was hopeful that we could do it faster, but we just haven't been able to get it done.
Tony, a quick question about the Valley Crest property. Are you talking about the growing grounds just west of the city of Fillmore?
Correct.
That's leased from a local landowner, isn't it?
There may be some that's leased from a local landowner. This property that we were working on we identified it as the Bear Creek site. I didn't know that there was a Bear Creek, but anyway, apparently there is, and it's the central property that actually is owned by Devil Mountain Nursery now. And I believe that they may lease some space to the west of that. So that would be an alternative, is to approach the other landowner. We originally had a very willing landowner, I think was one of the owners of Valley Crest, and they sold their interest in Valley Crest to Devil Mountain Nursery about the time we were starting to talk to them. And so we had willing local representatives, and when I got to a lawyer in Walnut Creek, it didn't go anywhere. It went backwards. So so that one, I think we have some options, but we ran out of time for that one. And you know, they were refusing to give us access for the time that we needed and kept asking for more money. And so it was clear that one wasn't going to get done on time.
Complicated process. It's not only just the easements and the property owners and the environmental concerns, but doing anything in the river from September to March also risks being underwater.
Yes.
So that's a tough time to do work there.
Yes. We're hopefully in a place that places that will not get wet unless if those locations get wet, we're going to be in really big trouble in many other areas. But they have to be close enough that we can get the data that we need. So I think we've gotten as close to the riverbed as we can get, but on a little bit higher ground, so that we can have access to these over the long term.
Okay, great. Further comments, questions from the board? Okay, then I would entertain a motion to approve the proposed budget modifications for fiscal year 2021-22 as described in our agenda and also by staff.
So moved.
We have a motion from Director Pace. Is there a second?
I'll second. Give it to Director Villaseñor.
You're both too fast. All right, second by Director Villaseñor. Have a roll call, please.
Sure. Director Kimball,
Aye.
Chair Long,
Aye.
Vice Chair McFadden,
Aye.
Director Minigan,
Aye.
Director Pace,
Aye.
Director Villaseñor.
Aye.
Perfect.
Okay, we have a unanimous approval.
And just a comment, in the minutes, it says edits to agency bylaws, not to the actual proposed motion. I don't know if it matters, Scott.
No.
Okay.
No, the motion was to approve the amendment. It was not what was stated in the staff memo. Thank you, Director Kimball.
Thanks. I tried to be specifically vague on that. Okay, moving on to item 4D. Tony, you want to give it? Yeah, I know you've started that, but
My apologies for the save as error on that previous one. That's kind of embarrassing. Sorry about that. What we have before you on item 4D is a proposed amendment to agreement with Daniel B. Stevens and Associates, as we talked about, for preparation of the annual reports and the online database. And I think this can be described as a sort of a not to exceed. We did our best to estimate a number of hours that would be needed to process a lot of the information. So I believe all of our analyses and GSP took information up to 2019. So 2020 and 21 data and documents will need to be reviewed in this. We obviously are not going to be able to do any new modeling in between now and April. United staff probably will be doing some monitoring, modeling updates in the future, but we don't have an expectation that we'll be able to do a model run that incorporates these 2 years in time to get an annual report done for April. So this will be looking at all the data that's available. It will also be involving reviewing any wells that are constructed, any data that needs to be added to the online database. So the one that is a pretty amazing document. I've actually used that quite a few times already, and been able to find some really good information on different wells and different areas. So there's a lot of behind the scenes work, and then obviously there's preparing annual report documents that need to be finished and uploaded by April 1st for both of these basins. So it's not just a combined report, but it'll be one update for each of the basins.
Okay, any questions, comments? Okay, let's see, then I would entertain a motion to approve amendment number 3 to professional services agreement number 2019-10-18-DBSA with Daniel B. Stevens Associates for preparation of the agency's annual reports for water year 2021 and for associated maintenance and updates of the agency's online data management system. Made it easy for somebody.
I'll motion what you said.
Okay, we have a motion, a second from motion from Chair Long, and a second from Director Villaseñor. Eva, roll call, please.
Sure. Director Kimball,
Aye.
Chair Long,
Aye.
Vice Chair McFadden,
Aye.
Director Minigan, Director Pace,
Aye.
Director Villaseñor.
Aye.
Perfect.
Okay, we have unanimous vote in favor. And that's all for item 4D. Move on to future topics for board discussion.
Yes, I would like to ask that we have our calendar for next year on, and then also to let us know if we have to do any elections of whomever when that time frame is. I'm just thinking like planning wise. Would appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah.
I would also like the legislative platform to be developed. We had mentioned that we were going to work on that, and now that we have budget amendments and GSPs behind us, I think we need to work on that post haste. I think it will help provide our executive director with guideposts on what our priorities are.
Okay. Any other suggestions for future topics of board discussion?
Acting Chair McFadden, may I ask a couple of clarifying questions?
Please do.
So with the calendar, I guess first off, is the board happy with this arrangement, 5 o'clock Thursdays? This seems to be working for the most of the board. And I guess a comment is that at this point, we are paying our bills after we meet. So this board is approving the warrants, and then those get paid by United afterwards. So at some point, we could go to a less frequent than monthly meeting, but it seems like we have enough work in front of us that we would stick with monthly. Does that make sense to the board? So I think at least for the foreseeable future, we would do monthly meetings, but we would have to consider and have a discussion of some other means to pay our bills, because I think most of our vendors wouldn't like a 60-day net on some of their work. So so we'll produce a draft calendar and include it in the agenda package. And then I think it definitely is appropriate in January for us to select officers. And one of the things that our legal counsel had mentioned a while ago is that our appointments for board members are on sort of the agency's fiscal year basis. So I believe it's in June or July. And in reality, many of the agencies that we have as members appoint their committee members in December or January. So at one point, legal counsel, and it may not have been you, Scott, it may have been Steve, said, oh, well, if we have staggered terms and we have selections in July, but for example, I believe Chair Long's term ended at the end of June, but her particular agency, the Board of Supervisors, doesn't appoint somebody until December. So it may be something that we need to work with legal counsel on. That would be a change, I believe, to either our bylaws or something that would allow us to get in sync with when our member agencies appoint their directors. So that's something perhaps Scott and I can work on coming up. But I think we definitely will calendar election of officers. And then as Chair Long said, the Board of Supervisors confirmed her reappointment. So you're stuck with us, Chair Long, for another period. We're happy to have you. And we do not, staff has not been working on development of a legislative platform. And I guess I would, we can calendar that for discussion at the January meeting, but that seems like it might be the kind of thing that we want to start with a couple members that would chew on that a little bit as an ad hoc committee to develop some of that to start with, or is that something that the whole board would like to think about some things and just have an open discussion about those items?
What if we put it on the agenda for January to brainstorm a bit and see which direction we can go with?
Okay, we'll do that, and we'll just have that be a discussion, and we won't try to start with much. We'll just use that as our starting point and brainstorm that with the whole board.
Okay, anything else?
And as I mentioned earlier, we will be seeking Chair Long's approval for a special meeting to do our AB 361 duty for 30 days, updating our ability to meet remotely.
Tony, you and I can talk about that tomorrow or Monday as well.
Okay,
So the tentative would be on January 13th at 5 o'clock.
yes. As
Sorry
long as
about
that
my
works
look.
for everybody.
Okay, thank you.
Sounds good to me. You guys figure out what we need to do. Okay, not an item for future discussion, but Kelly, I'm sure glad you got appointed and very happy we're still in your district.
Me too.
A lot of good stuff left to do. Okay, unless somebody has, I'm looking around at faces, seeing if anybody looks like they're dying to say something. Not seeing that. So I will adjourn the meeting at 6:39.
Thank you so much, Ed, and all of you. Have a happy holiday.
Yeah, happy holidays, everybody.
You also.
Thank you.
Happy holidays, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Stay home,
Congratulations.
farmers.
Yay.